Hi everybody. Welcome into the Rolling with Sean podcast. I thank you so much for tuning in today. Y'all know that on this podcast, I try to inspire people, encourage people, and uplift people. So let them know that no matter what challenges we face in life, uh, that we can do all the things we want to do. We just might have to go about them a different way. Uh, Today, I have my buddy Corey Orange on the show. Welcome, Corey.
Thank you, Sean. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome, bro. Thanks for doing it. I met Corey last September when when he was one of the ones to help me on my second Tulsa Urban Adventure 100. It was great to have you out there, bud.
It was so much fun, Sean. I really enjoyed
it. And you did your own 100 miler later on, earlier on this year, right?
That's right, Rocky Raccoon in February down in Huntsville, Texas.
So how'd that go for you, buddy?
Well, I did that in memory of my daughter, and but it went really well. We got to raise some money for SafeNet services here, and with God's help, I got to finish it. So
that's awesome. Well, I was so honored that you asked me to help you with your next fundraiser, and we chose the Lighthouse, which is a private Christian school for kids as a nonprofit. They serve children with disabilities and their families, and I actually went there myself in the early 80s. I was a student there until I started first grade in Tulsa Public Schools. So, I'll be putting the link to our fundraiser in the video and in the audio podcast as well. So, you're doing the Pumpkin Holler 100, right?
that's correct. Yes. And teaming with you, fundraising for the little lighthouse here in Tulsa, and attempting to run the Pumpkin Holler 100 in under 24 hours.
Well, I'm just gonna say it right now. I believe you'll do it. I believe all things are possible if we just believe. So I believe you'll do it. Well, Corey, you also have a pretty amazing story of what God's brought you through, and I know your story will inspire and encourage and motivate people to see the journey you're on, and you've done a lot of work to get your life back, and part of the thing that put you on the journey is number one, God, and number two, you're running community, and I'm so glad that God brought us across each other's path. Brother, I would have turned it over to you so you can tell your story. Thanks for being on the show today.
Thank you. First of all, let me say, Sean, that you're a big source of inspiration for me, and I learn a lot about, strength, hope, and faith just following you. Not only am I your friend, but I follow you on Facebook, and you're a big source of inspiration and hope for me. Second of all, I'd like to thank your mom for making this possible, and I know she should be home recovering right now, really. So I'd like to ask for continued prayers for Sean's mother, Kylie, as she continues to recover from procedures she just had done. And then a big shout out to my girlfriend, Penny, who's allowing us to do this in her house.
Yes, thank you, Penny, for letting us use your space for this podcast.
That's it. I mean, I'm not sure what she sees in me because dating me is like, hey, come out in this 93-degree heat and let's go run hills, or hey, let's go spend a weekend in the woods with my friends and run some mountains. But somehow she's here, so I'm very grateful.
She sees what kind of character you have and what kind of man you are, because you're a great guy, and I'm so I'm blessed to be able to call you my friend. You say you learned a lot from me, but I learned a lot from you. You know, the Bible says iron sharpens iron, so I believe we learn from each other, and we challenge each other, and we watch each other, and I believe we help each other grow.
That's right.
So thank you.
I look forward to continuing to do that.
Yes, sir.
Well, before this, I prayed that for God to guide my words and for what I talk about here tonight help somebody somewhere. And a lot of it, may be looked at as embarrassing, and I may have been nervous at first to put it out there because, let's face it, some people can be judgmental. Not everybody is of a Christian heart. But if it helps one person tonight, then it's well worth it to me. I'm going to give you a little background. Not that any of this made me an addict. I believe I was born to be who I am and who I was, and everything I went through brought me to this point to be who I am today. So I don't regret any of it. I regret hurting people along the way, but I'm not that person today. So I grew up in a small town. I say small town in New Jersey, but really it's the largest city in the area. But it's not a big city. We have farms there, a lot of produce, wineries, but there is an inner city, just like any other place. There is, sections that are prone to drugs and crime, and but where I grew up, my dad was from Virginia, my mom from New Jersey. He was a hillbilly, so we lived in a neighborhood not known for farms, but we had a fence-to-fence garden. We had chickens, we had rabbits, and it was a good life. I felt a lot of love. Unfortunately, he got lung cancer. He got lung cancer and passed away when I was 10 years old. And almost immediately, there was a drastic change.
I'm sorry for your loss.
Well,
that's a very difficult age, because that's just when you're within a couple of years of that, you start being shaped and molded into who you're going to be. So that's a very difficult time to lose a parent, but especially a father.
Yeah, and here's the thing. My dad spoiled me. I mean, there's no other way around it. He married my mom. My mom had 8 children already. She gave him me, and I was, I was just spoiled rotten. And when he passed away, my life drastically changed. All that was gone. It's like I felt a love from him that maybe I took it for granted when he was there, and when he was gone, I just didn't feel that anymore, and things were changed. I mean, I was made to be responsible. That was what the goal was, what my mom was trying to do, make me be responsible. And I kind of held it against my dad for passing away. How could he die and leave me, like this? And I think I was mad at God for a long time. I grew up in a Baptist church, and I think I had a lot of anger towards God and towards my dad for leaving me. And almost immediately, I started hanging out with the kids from the other section of town. And, at first it was just smoking weed, and then missing school, and the grades dropping, and the pattern just progressed and progressed. And finally, when I got to 17, I started hitting harder drugs. I don't want to make this a long drug log because that's not it. I just want to give you a little background to show you how far God's brought me.
Well, I want people to see where you were and where God can bring us if we allow God, because I believe we all come from a struggle. We all come from something.
Absolutely.
We all need God, and a lot of us try to fill the void with a lot of other things besides God. Maybe it's drugs, maybe it's sex, maybe it's a lot of things, maybe it's overeating, maybe it's, I don't know what it is for each individual person, but I believe we all have something.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. Something blocking us off in the sunshine of the Spirit of the Lord.
Right.
And for me, that was drugs. That was my escape. So I got arrested for the first time when I was 17 down the end of my mom's driveway. I was drunk out of my mind, had drugs on me, and could barely stand up, and a cop just happened to be riding by. And that was my first run-in with the law, and they let me go because there were some police officers that were friends of the family. And I think I got away, not even probation. I didn't get anything, so it didn't teach me any lesson at all. Shortly after that, I found crystal meth, but back there we were calling it crank, and that allowed me to stay up late and party more. So I thought it was the best thing in the world, and but it made me outgoing, which really I'm not. I'm sort of like an outgoing introvert, but it just changed my life. It gave me that feeling, that escape, and I did that for a few years until I stuck a needle in my arm, and then that became the thing for a while, shooting cocaine. And, meanwhile, I couldn't keep a job. I'm out of school. My mom's like, what are you going to do with your life? And, it was bleak. It wasn't looking good. And when I was 18, I went to my mom with a 10-pack of syringes and told her what I had been doing and asked her for help. And I remember she was a nurse. When my dad died, she had to put herself back through school, and she went to work. And she was a nurse at the local hospital there, and she detoxed me. My very first detox ever was on her couch. And then we started calling rehabs, trying to see what we could do. And we didn't have insurance for me. I was over 17, so I was over 18.
Yeah.
And we couldn't afford it. And I remember saying distinctly to the lady at the rehab over the phone, she told me how much it would cost. And me being a smart aleck, I said, oh man, it's cheaper to keep getting high. And little did I know how wrong that statement is, how terribly wrong it was. And so things went on. My addiction progressed. My mom eventually had to put me out of the house because I started stealing. I had to feed my addiction, and money would start missing from her purse, or she was the treasurer of the Women of the News, and it would start missing from bingo night deposits, and it was just bad. I was just awful kid and prior to that, I had been a straight A student and, just thinking about college and playing baseball for college. And I was always an athlete. And at this point, I couldn't walk a block, let alone run a block. So something happened, and me and a couple guys robbed a dealer for an ounce of coke. And he threatened to kill me. And I felt like the other two guys kind of skipped out and it fell on me. And I felt like I had to get out of town. But how was I going to? Basically, I was homeless already. And I was sleeping in some guy's basement. He let me in at night to sleep in his basement. And we were stealing frozen vegetables from train cars and cooking them out in the woods. And or going by and asking McDonald's at the end of the night for whatever they had left over on the grill. And that's how we were eating.
Yeah.
And I just didn't know how I was going to get out there, but I was sure I was going to die if I stayed. So I walked into the recruiter's office, and
well, that'll get you out of there for sure.
So I walked in. I remember I had brothers in the military. I remember my brother Doug telling me about the Air Force, how when he went through training, it was raining too hard. They told him to skip certain parts of it because it was too muddy. And he said it's the easiest of all four, but you had to be smart. So I went in there and sat down, and the guy was happy to see me. And he asked me a few questions, and he got to that part where he said, "Have you done any drugs?" And I started listing them. And he just stood up and he said, "Well," shook my hand and said, "Sorry, I can't help you." Well, the Navy recruiter happened to be in the same office for some reason, like sitting across from him. And I looked at him, and he was like, pointed to the door. So I walked out and walked into the Army recruiter and got the same results. But down the end of the hall was this little short, sawed-off, tough-looking son of a gun who was a Marine Corps recruiter. And we walked in, and he didn't ask me any questions. He just told me about the Marine Corps, and then he gave me a test, and I had some smarts on me, and I aced the test. And he looked at it, he's like, "Wow, man." He's like, "Well, we can get you out of here in a couple weeks." And
well, that's awesome.
And he said, "Can you pass a drug test?" And that was the first mention he made of it. And I said, "Well, I'm quitting. And I can in a little while. I can't right now." And he's like, "Well, what are you quitting?" And so I told him everything. I listed every drug. And he's like, "Well, how did you score on this test if you're doing all those?" He said, "I'll tell you what, you stay clean for 4 weeks. We'll get you out of here and you'll never think about drugs again." And that sounded good to me, man. So I went home, and I didn't stay clean for them 4 weeks, but I did stay clean the last 2 weeks, and then I just kind of, I drank, but then I kind of detoxed in boot camp.
So that was your first ray of hope. You looked at that recruiter, and you're like, "This is my way out. This is my way to change my life. This is the way to turn everything around."
Exactly, but that didn't necessarily work. That worked for a while. I went to boot camp. Of course, I stayed clean there. Somehow I made it through because I wasn't in very good physical shape. The drugs had taken their toll. But by the end of boot camp, I was in the best shape of my life. And, I got duty stationed. I went to infantry training school, they called it back then, in South Carolina. And then I got flown over to the Philippines. And I thought when they sent me over to the Philippines, this is the best thing for me because I will never find a drug over here. Never, ever, ever will I find a drug in the Philippines. And that was pretty much true. And I did pretty well while I was over there. I got meritorious promotion. I got meritorious master. So, and I was looked up to as a Marine and a squad leader. And but then my time in the Philippines ended, and they sent me to California. And California and me were not a good mix. They just weren't. I seemed to find the same crowd, fell into the same stuff, and
the same type of people, the same environments, the same temptations.
Same trying to fill that hole I had, because at 10 years old, I missed both my father's loves. My father died, and I turned from God. So I had no defense.
Do you feel like all that stuff you were doing was trying to take the place of the missing love, the missing validation that you would have gotten or should have gotten to your father had he not passed away?
Yeah, I think so. Not only that, but I just quit. I quit my walk with Jesus. Like as a kid, I was that kid sitting in Sunday school the whole time, paying attention with his, hands folded, and just sitting still and being a good kid and listening and learning and loving God. And then I just went to this place where you couldn't pay me to go to church, and I didn't want to hear about God. And God took my father from me. And then there were some other things that happened to me when I was a kid that I felt like wouldn't have happened if my dad was there. But I don't think any of that really made me an addict. I think what made me an addict was, this is who I'm supposed to be today. So, but yes, when I got to California and the drugs were offered to me, I had no God, so I had no defense, and I said yes, and that just led to another 2-year binge until they locked me up. And when they locked me up, they were serious about locking me up, and they were talking about 12 years, because what I thought I did was trying to get some drugs for a friend, and what I actually did was got some drugs for an undercover NIS agent.
Oh.
And
so you were just...
So they tried to get me for distributing drugs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were caught in the middle of a bigger picture.
Yeah, I was just playing the middleman, getting something for somebody, but they called it something else. And in the military, they don't play around with that stuff. So I was looking at 12 years, and somehow I got a year, which I served 10 months for in the brig, but they had enough for Koi by then. And, much like everybody else in my life up to that point, including my family, it had enough for Koi.
I'm sure you can see now, but I'm a big believer that once we truly turn over our life, if there's ever a point in our life that we turn over to God, that, our salvation is sealed. So, I don't know if you see it this way, but I see it as God's grace being on you the whole time.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. God never stopped loving me. God didn't walk away from me. God was there with me through those lows and got me through all that to get me to this point. I'm the one that walked away from God. God never turned on me. So, absolutely, I believe that 100%. And, but after I got out of the brig, the Marine Corps asked me to kindly leave. I met my wife in California, my now ex-wife. We moved to Michigan to have kids, and when I met her, she was doing drugs too, and I felt like I found my soulmate. And when we got to Michigan, she was serious about starting a family, and she quit doing drugs, and I felt like I lost my best friend. I was like, she expected me to, and I'm just like, how? And at that point, I didn't even know I could, or
Mm-hmm.
didn't even know I wanted to.
Because you're like, this is all I've known for
Exactly.
X number of years. I can't. This is who I am now. I can't.
Exactly. And this leads up to the heartbreaking point because, we had children together, and I put her through. I put her through a lot. That woman, you know, I put her through a lot of things. I would not come home for days, not come home with a paycheck. Um, I had shady characters stopping by the house looking for me because I owed them money for drugs.
Mm-hmm.
It was just, she had to, basically rely on her mom and her stepdad because she couldn't rely on me, and not even for my own children. Even when I wanted to, I still wound up doing things against my will because that drugs had that much of a hold on me. I had no defense without God.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was that guy. I was that terrible father. Terrible. And I loved my girls. Loved them. But the problem with drugs is they don't make you love yourself, so you can't really reflect love. And without the love of God, if you're not receiving the love of God, I don't think you could truly love another person. If you don't receive the gift of the love of God, then it makes it impossible to truly selflessly love another person.
That's true.
And as much as I love my children, I just didn't know how to love them. And as much as I desired to not be that dirtbag down at the crack house, with no money left and no future, no plans, and just without any hope. As much as I did not want to be that person,
Mm-hmm.
I had no defense without God. No defense. So, eventually she got tired of that, and we went our ways, and she probably hung on too long. And, for a while, still in my addiction, I blamed her for it, and not being able to see my kids. But the truth is, drugs took me away from them. She didn't push me away from them. And I could clean up for a little while to see them, to spend time with them. But I always went back to the drugs because that's what
you had enough motivation, if I understand what you're saying, to detox yourself temporarily long enough to see your daughter for a short visit, but it wasn't nothing you felt like you desired to do long term.
Not at first, no. And I'll say this now, they've never seen me high. Never. My daughters have never seen me I've never gotten high in front of them to this day. And my oldest daughter's 29 years old. So, but that doesn't mean that my drug usage didn't affect them. Immensely. It hurt them terribly. It took me away from them. They grew up without their father, basically. They grew up with a guy with sporadic visits, or they'd come down and spend the summer with me after I moved, and that's basically, or they'd see me for Thanksgiving, and that's the kind of father I was. I just was not a good person. I wasn't. I was selfish. My addiction came first before almost everything. And I couldn't help it, and I couldn't change it on my own. I was powerless, And eventually, I got in with a group of shady characters in Brightmoor, Detroit, and decided I was going to be a dealer because then I would, get high for free. Well, um, that didn't turn out too well, and eventually I stole from them, and they caught me, and a few baseball bats and a couple bottles, and I woke up. They threw me in a dumpster and left me for dead. And if some lady didn't call 911, I probably wouldn't be here today telling this story. But she did, and they came and got me. And 3 days later, I woke up in a hospital without insurance, didn't know where I was.
Mm-hmm.
And I had 57 staples holding my head together, and broken ribs, and with still no plan and no future and no God. And I walked out of there, and my ex-wife had remarried by this time, and her new in-laws, her father-in-law was a pastor, and he was a good man. He was a good man. I mean, he did my job and taught my children about God. And I was walking out of the hospital, and him and his wife were there, and they had my kids in the back seat, and I cried. And I didn't want them to see me like I was, and here they were, and he told me he was taking me to the bus station and getting me out of there because that was the best thing for my children, and I had no argument. I couldn't argue with him because I knew he was right. As much as that hurt, I knew he was right. And he put me on a bus for New Jersey. And I got to New Jersey, and for maybe 2 or 3 weeks, I did okay. My brother would let me stay with him as long as I was inside the house by 7 o'clock at night. And it was kind of the same rules my dad had for him when he was a kid. And he was right. I should have been home by 7, but that only lasted 3 weeks. And pretty soon I was homeless or staying with this girl or that girl and finding the drugs in New Jersey. I mean, it wasn't hard. It wasn't hard. And I was right back to myself. Still no plans, still no God. And family. Now, not only I could see this now, but I couldn't see it back then. I just felt like they didn't love me. But when you don't receive the love from God, then it's hard to receive the love. Not only can you not love anybody, but you can't receive it because you can't really feel it.
Yeah.
And or at least that was my case. And so things didn't work out in New Jersey. Another brother in Florida offered me to come down there to get clean. He would get me a job, and I knew New Jersey wasn't working for me, and I went down to Florida. And but wherever I went, I took myself with me, and I got down there and started just all over again. It just started all over again, and not only that, I broke up his family. So it's not something I'm proud of, at all. But I mean, it's horrible. But I broke his family up, and that's the thanks he got for trying to help me. And so that went on for a while, and it was actually his ex-wife that started me going to AA. She got me in detox, not just once, several times. Got me into a couple rehabs.
Yeah.
And just kept, I would be able to stay clean for periods of time, 6 months, a year. And every time that anyone would talk about God, I just shut my mind to it. And, I could do this on my own type thing. And I just wanted, they started talking about the steps, and right away they started talking about God and the steps, and the 12 steps. And I just, and I get to the point where I just, okay, I'll fake it. Whatever they say, fake it till you make it. Well, you can't really fake faith. You can't really fake your beliefs. You can't really fake,
Right.
And so it just never worked out. And I tried, and this went on for years and years and years. And I would clean up for times, and then at the most crucial point, I would break and wind up out there for another 6 months, another year, and each time it got worse and worse and worse. Relationships, places to live, vehicles, but mostly I lost everybody who ever cared about me. Because if you cared about me, I was going to take you down that road with me. And, the whole time you're calling me back, calling me back, calling me back. And I just keep going further. And eventually I got down that deep, dark road where nobody was even calling me. Like, nobody, they just wrote me off. And for good reason.
Yeah.
For good reason. And I just got to this point. And I got this halfway house to allow me to stay with them. Because I think I was on my second or third stint of homelessness. And I stayed at the halfway house, and I remember looking at myself in the mirror one day and absolutely hating what I saw. Like, just disgusted. Can't believe I let myself become this person. And for the first time, I asked God for help. First time in forever, I asked God for help, and I'm in it. And I'd always been an athlete as a kid, and I did some running, and I enjoyed it in the Marine Corps. Before I got back to California, I was in great shape, and I loved to run. And so I decided that's what I was going to do, and I really didn't have any shoes. I think I had a pair of Run DMC Adidas, but
I remember those back in the day.
Yeah, the hard shells. And but I started running in those, and I couldn't run from one telephone pole to the next, and I'd have to walk for 3 more telephone poles. But I just kept going. I kept praying, and I kept running, and I kept praying, and I kept running, and pretty soon the running started getting a little bit easier. And I got out of that halfway house and got my own place, and I met a girl. And she was into doing these races. And I was like, a 5K. I was like, 5K, what's that? And she got me signed up for a race, and I loved it. It killed me, and I loved it. Like, I wanted to die at the end of it, because it was the summer in Florida. Summertime in Florida. And she signed up for a 3-race series. It's the first time I ever run a race, was a 3-race series.
Whoa.
It was
You turned off the deep end right back in you.
Yeah, looking at it now, not really, but back then, for a guy coming from where I came from, yes sir.
Yeah.
It was a 4-mile beach run at like 7 o'clock at night.
In the sand, dude.
Yeah.
It's hard, but what I hear is much harder to run in the sand.
It's a little more resistance. Where they had it at was down close to the water and low tide, so it was a little bit better than running in like deep, soft sand. But then the next day, then you had to get up early the next day, and 7 o'clock in the morning, there was a 5K in town. And so went and ran that, and I was like, wow, I couldn't believe I just did these 2 things. And then 1 o'clock in the afternoon in Center City, or down near the river, actually, near the Riverwalk in Jacksonville, Florida, they had this thing called a 1-mile burner, because it was in the heat of the day.
Yeah.
And it was
under the sun.
Yeah. And it was an all-out 1-miler. Now my running shoes, by that time I had one pair of running shoes to run DMCs. I ran the run DMCs on the beach. I ran the running shoes in the 5K, and the only thing I had left was I could afford was this pair of, I thought they were running shoes because I had no clue, but they were soccer shoes I bought at Bell's, at a store called Bell's Outlet, which I don't know, you would equivalent that to like a Ross, and they were like all leather. They weren't even mesh, and I'm wearing these leather shoes in like 100-degree heat, trying to run a mile burner. But I loved it. Like the next 2 or 3 days, I was so sore, and I couldn't wait to do it again. And I thank God for that. Like I thank God for that, man,
because that's, you started to see, this is something, if I keep up, this is something I can do well, and maybe not right away, but maybe over time you began, as you put more and more races together, you saw structure and purpose. You're like,
that's it.
now I have a reason not to get high. Now I have a reason that I love to do something besides take drugs. So now that gives you some order and purpose.
And more important than even that, like all that, the fitness aspect, the health aspect, just the self-esteem aspect was just groundbreaking to me. But more importantly, God put runners in my life, and those people were just amazing. They were like family. They accepted me because I always looked at me like, even me, like I could understand people looking down at me because I looked down at me. But these people made me feel like I was somebody, I was worth it. They would spend their time with me. They would, they would want to hang out with me and do things with me. And at first I was like, why? And then as time grew on, I started trying to emulate them, and I learned a lot about becoming a good person through the running community, and just that, a lot of that. And I didn't stop going to AA. Here's what kind of happened with that all throughout that process. See, I did learn to practice the 12 steps in my life.
Just in a different way.
Right. That brought me to my relationship back to God. And then, but I was still looked at as a bad example in AA because I had been in and out and in and out and in and out. And so, anybody knew, they'd be like, oh, their sponsor, the guy's been around for a while, they'd be like, oh, don't hang out with this guy. He's a bad example. He's been in and out 20 times.
Well, I'm a firm believer that our challenge in life doesn't define us. There's only two things in life that define us. God defines us, and we define ourselves, but we define ourselves through God.
That's right. And not only that, Sean, but God didn't put us here to judge other people. God put us here to love other people.
Right.
We're not the judge of anybody.
Right.
And not saying that in my defense, but I remind myself that daily. I mean, I think it helps because I came from a place like that, but a lot of people don't understand, say, a homeless drug addict or a mother out on the street when her children are with their grandparents being raised. Maybe they don't understand the struggle, and it's easy to sit and be judgmental when sometimes all that person needs is some love,
right?
And some prayer. So, I mean, you don't always have to help, because sometimes helping, especially an addict, giving financial help and stuff like that to an addict may be hurting them in the long run. But the best thing you can do for somebody to help them is pray for them, or maybe see if they had something to eat, get them something to eat. I mean, how much does it cost to pray for somebody?
Nothing.
And
just your time.
Instead of being hateful and judgmental, and
You know what I found? What I found in my own experience, some people, when, when people are going through something, they don't want you to sit there and say, you need to do this, this, and this, and you're doing this wrong. They just want you to listen to them.
Yeah.
They just want to know you care.
Exactly.
And when they know you care, guess what?
They'll
start to care about themselves. And when they care about themselves, they can slowly start to pull themselves out of the mess that they were in.
That's right. That's right. I mean, leading somebody to God is way more powerful than condemning them for what they're doing wrong. Absolutely. So the 12 steps led me to God. Running community gave me a foundation on which to practice Christian principles, and they taught me about service work. I learned service work from both of them. And see, God gave me a great gift. He gave me a couple gifts. I mean, plenty of gifts. I am so blessed today. You might look at me and say, well, that's not a rich man or whatever. And I will tell you, you're absolutely wrong. I am so rich. First of all,
being rich isn't always defined by money, because there's plenty of people that have all the money they can ever need, but guess what? They're miserable and suicidal because money does not make it happy.
That's right.
Money just makes money amplifies whatever you already are. If you're a generous person with money, guess what? You're gonna do a lot of good things with that money. But if you're a miserable person, all that money's gonna help you to be more miserable. But you'll be more comfortable while you're trying to be miserable at the same
time. Yeah, you're right, buddy. But God gave us all gifts, but the gifts specifically that I like to focus on is, first of all, He gave us His Son who died for our sins, and so that whosoever believeth on Him shall have everlasting life. So He gave me salvation. He saved me from my addiction. He pulled me up from. I was a person that people did not want to know, did not want to have around. Someone that they wrote off. I mean, called a low life. And they weren't wrong. They were not wrong for that. I cannot fault not one single person for that. And He pulled me up from that depth of not being able to stop. And here I am today. And that is just mind blowing. And He gave me running. He gave me running as a gift to help me stay clean. And not only that, but to build these relationships with the most amazing people. My family, I consider everybody that I've come into contact in the running world as a family member. And
you know what? I found that to be the same way in my own life. Since I've been in the running community, I found whether someone personally knows or not, everybody's accepting, everybody's helpful, and everybody is just glad that you're out there enjoying the same thing.
That's right.
They are. Because I firmly believe, if we could find more common ground with each other, this world would be a lot better place. You don't always have to have exactly the same views as somebody, but if you can find common ground, whatever that is, with somebody that's positive, then that's the way you can build that relationship.
That's right.
But the running community has been amazing to me. Without the community and without you signing up to help me on my third 100 miler, we wouldn't know each other. So
I'm grateful.
I'm very grateful for that as well.
Yeah, man. Friends like you don't come easy, man. They don't come around very often. You're like one in a million, buddy. And I'm so grateful for you.
Well, you're a great guy, and I'm very blessed and honored to be able to call you my friend, man.
Well, I appreciate it, man. And me too. And what I was trying to say about service, getting the service work, the Bible tells us that the Son of Man did not come here to be served, but to serve. And and it also tells us that I'm not real good on scripture. I can remember the scripture, but I can't tell you where it's from. But this is from Peter, the book of Peter, and it tells us the Lord gives us gifts to disperse as He has given them to us. And that just spoke to my heart. God gave me running, and I'm so grateful that He gave me my health and that I'm able
He restored all that, man.
Exactly. I couldn't walk. I could barely walk a block because I was just so sick from the drugs. And in February, I completed a 100-mile race. And
awesome.
So
I knew you would do it, man.
I appreciate it, man. So, but I want to do that. When I'm doing that, I want to show my gratitude because gratitude is an action word. And
right.
I want to use my running to help others. And that's why we're teaming together to help the little Lighthouse. So it's an amazing school. Sean could tell you more about the work it does. He's an alumni. But
it's really amazing and gave me a great start and helped me build a great foundation. Like I went there from the ages of 2 to 6, but the school and all the people that were there, it's just awesome community. Not only do they serve the kids with disabilities, they surround their parents and they serve them and help them in whatever way they can. So it's a great organization. It's a great school, and like I said, I'm honored that you asked me to team up with you to help give back to such a great school.
Likewise.
And great. I'm really happy to be able to help you give back, and we're gonna make a lot of difference.
That's
for,
right, man.
For the school because it's a 501c3, so all your donations are tax deductible. So, you know, be sure to check them out, and you can find out more information by Googling Little Lighthouse of Tulsa, Oklahoma.
That's right.
And I'll put the link within this video. This video is going to be on YouTube, and I'll put it on my podcast platform as well. But, it's just amazing to be able to hear your story and see where God's brought you through, because on this podcast, I try to let people know, no matter what their challenge in life, we're all going to face challenges in life. That's not the issue. The issue is, what will you do when you face those challenges? Will you rise up and meet your challenges, or will you let your challenges beat you and defeat you? And I know, for me, I have people of all backgrounds that listen to this podcast, and I hope that everyone listening gets something from it. But I know for me and Corey, our faith is very important. I would not be the man I am today without my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Number one, my mom raised me as a single mom. So most of my life, and so I would not be who I am without my mom and without the great community that I built around me, the great community of friends and people, people that I consider family. I have a great family, a great support system, but I believe also, and you can create your family. I've created a great uh, uh, family system within within my church and the running community and all different spirits of my life. So I, I'm surrounded by great people, and I'm honored to say that you're one of those.
I'm honored too, Sean. I really am. I'm really grateful to have you in my life. I just want to say one last thing about God's grace, mercy, and love. 9 years ago, even after getting clean, having brought my daughters to some meetings when they were little, and I was living in Florida. I'd say about 12 years ago now, and my one daughter started having problems, my youngest, Megan, and she was using drugs, getting in trouble, and her mom sent her down to live with me, and I enrolled her in high school there, and she was just straight A student, just the best kid, but she missed her sister and her brother, and she wanted to go back to Michigan. So we made that happen. And maybe 2 years later, she graduated in Michigan. And she was kicked around for a couple years with a job and decided she was going to go to college. And but in August, 9 years ago, 3 days after her birthday, she overdosed from heroin. And there's nothing anybody could do about that, but everybody, including me, thought that I was not going to make it through that. I would go back to drugs, but I just relied heavily on God. God says, cast your burdens on me, and I did. I knew I had to be an example and try to show my daughter Haley that this is definitely the most pain we felt ever in our whole entire life, but we can make it through. We just rely on God, and in our community, the running community was just so great to me, and helping me get through that, and not that it's ever stopped hurting. It never has.
And never, you always remember, you never forget. But as you go forward in life, I think we learn with the help of God to move forward.
That's right. Relentlessly.
To remember our family members, the good things about the people with us, and I believe, this is what I believe. I believe that when your work is through, I believe you'll see her again.
I believe that too.
I believe that.
I believe that too. But I just said that to say that here was a guy. You go back a little further. Here was a guy who couldn't stop using drugs, couldn't keep a job, didn't have a place to live. People would spit at him. And here's a guy who, could make it through the most difficult thing in his life and not pick up a drug. That thing that I always knew to do, so I didn't have to feel. Here was a guy learning how to feel feelings and know that it was going to be okay.
Yeah. So when the help of God, you were able to feel the feelings, walk through it. Probably the most difficult pain you could ever face as a father, and not revert back to your ways of numbing the pain, not running to what is comfortable, but letting your emotions go so you can process them and go through it, go through them on the other side. Not that they ever go away because you always remember your daughter, but hope, through the help of God, you can tell me if I'm wrong, you learn to put one foot in front of the other and continue to build a life that brings you happiness, joy, and fulfillment through God and through all the gifts and blessings He's giving you.
That's right. And you know, and through service work, through helping others, you know, that's what gives me that's what gives me great joy. That's what keeps me going, and that is my hope that my oldest daughter Haley, even though we don't see eye to eye all the time, she knows deep in her heart how much I love her and how much I'll do anything for her. And hopefully she'll look back one day and say, you know, my dad was a good man. She doesn't have to be that girl that says, oh, yeah, my dad, he was just a low life crackhead and you know, never was around. So those are great motivating factors. And God showed me that even through great pain, I could keep moving. And I think that just set me up to be an ultra runner.
Yeah.
You know?
Because I know that for me even though being an endurance athlete is different for me because someone's pushing me, I'm still sitting there in the elements. I'm going through whatever everybody else is going through, and so for me, the reason I like running, especially the big runs and all the big stuff that we all do, is because I like to push myself physically and mentally. I like to challenge myself, and so for me, that running is the way I do that. Also, I work out in the gym, but I love to test myself, and that's what I see in you. You like to challenge yourself. You like to push yourself because I think in the challenging ourselves, in the pushing ourselves, is when we grow the most. Because for, I I don't know about you, but you know what I always think about if everything is easy all the time, we don't grow as much.
That's right.
But it's when we put ourselves in the environment where we have to push ourselves a little bit outside of our a little bit outside ourselves. That's when we find out who we are really inside. And you know, for myself, you know, anybody that follows my podcast, uh, follows me on Facebook or anywhere, they know that my life motto is always find another way because I believe that we can do anything we want to do.
That's right, Sean.
We might just have to find a different way to do it. A few years ago, I would have never thought that I could be a part of the running community, although I always looked up to endurance athletes, always read books about them and all this stuff. But I very quickly realized that my job was to be the encourager, the motivator while my uh, while my teammates were pushing me, my job was to encourage them, motivate them, and help us keep going. Uh, keep an eye on the course, keep an eye out on the chair, and you know, uh, uh, to be honest, um, at first, when I first uh, signed up for my first race, I didn't know if I would like someone pushing me, um, because I'm like, what can I get out of someone pushing me? You know, I'm a person that's very active, like to do things myself. But I'll tell you what, when I did my very first 5K, and I did it with an organization called Ambulance Angels of Oklahoma, and that's a national organization. But what they do is they focus on pairing able-bodied athletes like Corey and someone that's more physically challenged like myself. I have cerebral palsy. Uh, they allow us to participate in 5Ks, 10Ks, half and full marathons, and I love that. The very first time I did it, I'm like, I now know what it's like to run on this side of the closest thing I'll probably ever experience to running this side of heaven. So I love it, and because of the great community of people I met like Corey, I've gone on to do much bigger things with just friends that I met through the running community. I've done multiple triathlons now, and for those of you who don't know, uh, triathlons are running, biking, and swimming. Um, they pull me across the open water in a raft. Then they'll carry me, put me in a racing wheelchair, and then they'll attach that to a bike, and then we'll do a full Ironman at 112 miles on a bike, and then after you finish that, you do a 26.2 mile run, which is a full marathon. But I've gone on to do 3 ultra runs, and that's running 100 miles. Uh, I've done I've done 3 of those. Now I've got one coming up later this year, but I just like challenging myself. I love the community, and my part is to just be the encourager, be the motivator. They're my legs, but I kind of look at myself as the spirit and the heart, because to keep us all going, and it's a team effort. I help make sure they have what they need. I help um, look out for problems on the course, look out for runners coming towards us, bikes coming towards us, cars, whatever the situation is, and I'm able to know what my teammates need, make sure they're hydrated or anything they might need. So I enjoy just being a part of this community. Matter of fact, tomorrow you and I are gonna go on a training run on the riverside here in Tulsa. I know this is being viewed everywhere, but where we are right now is in Tulsa, Oklahoma. That's where many of you know, that's where I was born, and so we're gonna be running on the Riverside Trail. So if anybody's uh, ever sees us out there, wave and say hi.
Absolutely.
So
come get some miles with us.
So Corey, I want to thank you so much for
brother. Thank you for having me, man.
Thank you. I know it can be difficult at times to make yourself vulnerable and open yourself up, but I appreciate it because I know that there's someone listening to this right now that maybe they're in the situation that you were, and they're gonna turn. God's gonna inspire them to turn this audio podcast or video podcast on, however they're listening to it. You know what? And they're gonna think, if he can do it, I can turn myself around.
Oh, that's my prayer, man.
So
that definitely is my prayer.
Don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Don't forget to hit the follow button on YouTube. You'll get notified of all future podcasts and future episodes. Please check out the Lighthouse. We would love to have your help to give back to this great school and these great kids. Cause like I said, it's a 501c3. It's a non-profit. They only survive off of private donations. So anything you can do to help would be awesome.
You can find us on Facebook. The post is, I made it public so you can find our link. It's Sean and Coy's fundraiser for the Little Lighthouse of Tulsa.
Yes, sir. And if you want to follow any of us personally, come follow us. We would love to have you on our journey.
Absolutely.
You can find my speaker page at Sean Lewis Motivational Speaker. You can find my YouTube at Rolling with Sean Lewis on YouTube. I'm also on TikTok and Instagram under the same name. And if you just search Sean Lewis on Facebook, I'm there too. Coy, thank you for joining the show today. I want to ask you to do one more thing. If there's somebody that's in the situation you were in a long time ago now, but what would you say to them to encourage them?
Ask God for help. You got this. Trust me, God doesn't love me any more than he loves anybody else, and my life is amazing today. They told me I'd have a life beyond my wildest dreams, and I didn't believe them, but trust me, it is. It is. So trust God, clean house, help others. You got this.
Thank you, Clay. Awesome words of wisdom for everybody. Well, as always, guys, remember, you can do anything you want to do. You just have to find a different way to do it. And for me and Clay, that's our faith.
God bless you.
God bless you. Have a great night. Or whenever you're watching this, I hope you have a great day. See you later.